What's the most mind-blowing fact you've ever heard? It blows my mind that the moon we look at every night is the same moon that has been looked at for thousands upon thousands of years. The ancient Mayans, the Greeks. Empires have risen and fallen under this moon. Only within the past century, have we touched it. Was a great story about how there is a tribe of people on a remote island that were visited in the 70s by scientists. When revisited many years later, they were ignorant of wristwatches, phones, etc. But they knew we had been to the moon. They wanted to know who was walking on the moon these days. Carl Sagan. Stem cells could extend the lives of future humans. Scientists injected mice that normally live 21 days with stem cells and they lived about 70 days, which is equal to an 80-year-old human living to be 200. More people have died/will die from starvation over a 15-year period, 2000 to 2015, than died in all the wars, genocides, and repressions of the 20th century, and if the UN reaches its goal then that number might only be 240 million dead. The brain requires a little bit of time to process incoming information. You are actually living a fraction of a second behind reality. The stray bullet may have already come through the window and you don't know it yet. In 1903 the Wright brothers flew for 59 seconds. 38 years later the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. 28 years after that, we landed on the moon. The Chernobyl accident has only killed 68 people to date. It's expected to account for less than 0.001% of all new cancers in Europe over the next 60 years. From the time it was discovered to the time it was stripped of its status as a planet, Pluto hadn't made a full trip around the Sun. Pluto was also the Roman god of the dead and wealth. He was ostracized from the rest of the Olympians, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Neptune, etc., much like how the dwarf planet is separated from the rest of the planets. When you get a kidney transplant, they usually just leave your original kidneys in your body and put the third kidney in your pelvis. When you lay down outside, looking up at the sky, you're actually staring down into an infinite cosmic abyss, with only the Earth's gravity stopping you from drifting off forever. My great-grandmother was born in the late 19th century. In her lifetime, she went from people's main source of travel being horses, to seeing people walk on the moon. And then she lived about 40 years longer after that. There is a jellyfish that is biologically immortal. Every time it starts to age past its peak, it reverts back to an adolescent phase and restarts. They could theoretically live forever. Cleopatra lived closer in time to the first moon landing than to the building of the Great Pyramid. When you look up at the sky, you are not seeing the stars in their present state, however you are looking into their past lives. The following fact has been in my mind lately, inspired by something I read on Reddit a week or so ago. It was actually inspired by a link into the atheism Reddit. In my body right now, biochemical reactions we call life are occurring. It's cool that they've been going my whole life. My heart has done well over 1 billion beats at this point. That's cool. But my life processes date back longer than that. My cells grew out of an egg and sperm that came from my mom and dad, and that process was continuous. In other words, they were living before, they came together, rearranged themselves, and kept on going. So in a very real sense, my life is a continuation of my dad's life and my mom's. Admittedly for only 2 very lucky cells of theirs. Likewise, their life was the continuation of their progenitors, and so on. In that sense, as a living thing, I've been going strong for at least 3.5 billion years. Yes, I used to be simpler, and at various times I've narrowed down to just a couple of cells, but through thick and thin, I've managed. When I die, it'll be the end of the line. But 3.5 billion years will have been a pretty good run. Martin Sheen's original name was Ramon Estevez. He had 2 sons, Emilio and Carlos. Emilio kept the Estevez, but Carlos changed his name to Charlie Sheen. He changed his stage name to ride the coattails of his father's changed stage name. That it took thousands of years after domesticating the horse to invent the stirrup. Just think of that, for a good 3,000 years riders just rode with their legs dangling. My balls hurt just thinking about that. Wherever you are on Earth right now, at this very moment, your own lungs contain 10 billion of the very same molecules that were exhaled by Julius Caesar. And 2,000 years from now, any random person on any continent will have 10 billion molecules of air that you once breathed in them at any given moment. Inanimate matter, born from exploding stars billions of years ago, can come together in a form that has the capacity to question its own existence. It's been said before, but if you are a woman and you do not produce a biological daughter, you'd be the first woman in the history of your maternal line to not do so. Think about it, everyone has a mother, so your mothers, etc., all the way back to the beginning of the two sexes. If we took a single E. coli bacterium from your gut and gave it perfect conditions of temperature, nutrient availability and so on, it would have a doubling time of 20 minutes. So you'd start with 1, and after 20 minutes, you'd have 2. After 40 minutes, you'd have 4. Overnight, you'd have more than 1 million. In rather less than 3 weeks there would be enough bacteria to cover the entire planet to the depth of 1.5 feet. An hour later, and it would be over our heads. Within rather less than 2 months the ball of bacteria would be as big as the Earth. Within a few thousand years, if we could suspend physical and universal constraints, the ball of bacteria would be more massive than the visible universe and expanding outward from the point of origin faster than the speed of light. VY Canis Majoris, Big Dog, is the largest known star to man. 1 billion of our suns could fit in it. It is 4,900 light years away from Earth. It's also still in our galaxy. This huge fucking object is so far away from us that we could never hope to reach it with a probe in the next few tens of thousands of years, present technology, but it is still in our galaxy. We haven't even scratched the surface of understanding the magnitude of our universe. I don't think our brains are capable of comprehending the immense nature and how little we know. I learned that a blue whale's heart is the size of a VW Beetle and that you could swim through some of its arteries. When you dream, one part of your brain is making up the story, and another part is experiencing those events and is genuinely surprised by all the twists within the plot. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both died on July 4, 1826, the 50th birthday of America. Adams' last word were "Jefferson lives." He was wrong. Jefferson had died hours earlier in Virginia. The US made approximately 500,000 Purple Heart medals in anticipation for the number of casualties in the planned invasion of Japan. In 2003, 120,000 of those medals had yet to be handed out. In 58 years, there hadn't been as many wounded as there were expected in one invasion. Nuclear power. The magnitude of nukes are insane. The Tsar bomb that was dropped in Russia caused a 5-magnitude earthquake whose waves traveled around the world 3 times. And it was detonated 4.2 kilometers above the surface. We have the power to cause devastation in natural disasters. Beyond imagine. Lobsters live forever if nothing kills them. They don't age. There's other things too that don't age, but they are simpler organisms. Lobsters are reasonably complex. It sounds simple, but the implications of this are immense. There is a genetic combination where it is possible to regenerate cells indefinitely and live forever under the right conditions. Medical technology is nowhere near this right now, but the fact that it exists on Earth under laws of nature means immortality is not sci-fi. It is simply a matter of technology which can be achieved at some point in the future. It's like finding a cricket that can jump back and forth through time and no one noticed this whole time. It's proof it's possible. People who are born deaf and happen to be schizophrenic have some weird experiences. Someone born deaf, that has never been able to hear, uses sign language as their actual language. Not a representative language. Like the sign for water just is water, not the sign for water. When these people are schizophrenic and hear voices, they actually see disembodied hands floating in midair signing to them. Female koalas often engage in lesbian intercourse. You're a little too excited about this one, bud. So, what blows your mind? Let us know below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Love you long time.